Hey everyone, this is Sellers.
And this is Stormy.
And this is Unforgotten,
where each episode will highlight unsolved missing, murdered, and suspicious death cases in Alabama in order to raise awareness and hopefully obtain some answers for victims and their families.
Please remember that any individual referenced in the podcast should be considered innocent until found guilty in a court of law, and any opinions or views expressed in the podcast are solely those of participants. Listener discretion is advised, as some of the content discussed in the podcast may contain violence or graphic descriptions and may not be suitable for all audiences.
And now for episode 42, Curtis Crear, Randy Whitfield, and Elmer and Joette Thrasher.
Hey guys, and welcome back. Stormy,
Hey.
We actually have stormy weather. Did you send it this way?
Yeah, I think we just kind of had one of those Freaky Friday things going on or something, because we got the really hot weather here still. I think we mentioned that in the last episode, but my gosh.
It is just hot and humid here. Like one of those things where as soon as you open up the door, it's like, oh my God, the air's so thick you can't breathe.
Yeah.
And like summertime, it's always rainy anyway during the summer here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I heard it earlier when I was at work. And then a couple of the guys walked by and I was like, oh, is that thunder? And they're like, yep, and lightning. And we couldn't see out of any of the windows in the building because it was coming down so hard.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then it stopped and it got all like pretty again, sunshiny and stuff. And now the thunder's back.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we get lucky that way when it's hot. At least it's not humid.
Yeah. Alabama doesn't really know what it wants to do.
Well, and weather isn't the only thing. Oh.
True. Can you hear the thunder?
I can't hear it.
It's really loud.
So I have to get on a little soapbox, a tiny one and short-lived.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of our friends are at the True Crime and Paranormal podcast festival. Yep. And oh my heavens, I'm so jealous. I wish we could all go.
I know. I forgot that was this weekend.
Yeah. So it'll be last weekend when you guys listen to this. But, you know, we are, I guess, pretty lucky. Not a lot of drama happens with our podcast.
Yes.
So we get pretty lucky that way. Occasionally we get into it a little bit with some of our cases, but not anything really to really be worried about. But, you know, the higher profile cases, you know, you start getting into this whole disrespect and, you know, there's a lack of empathy out there that still exists. And I keep thinking that, you know, it's going to go away because everybody's so vocal about that now, being, you know, family oriented and, you know, all of that. But boy, one of our good friends, Raul, is getting raked over the coals right now from,
oh my gosh, he is
content. Yeah. From a guy. And I think that is just horrible. I mean, it not only takes away from the cases and, you know, it disrespects the families and the victims. Just, the whole thing just bothers me so badly. And, you know, on top of it, they're basically defaming him. So,
and well, it's not just him; it's his co-host Jessica, and
Jessica too.
It's just, the personal attacks aren't attractive.
Yeah, it's a bad look.
I mean, there are people that will listen. They like that kind of stuff, but it's hard drama. Sometimes to sit back and watch people who are trying to raise awareness in the right way and handle it in the right way, and just have people just ream them
Yeah.
For that. And I don't get it. Especially, I think it's like maybe an ethics thing where the whole point of all of this is raising awareness in a way that is conducive to getting the case solved, right?
Right.
Like bringing in more information, like reminding people that it's still out there, it's still unsolved, and everybody technically is working towards the same goal. Law enforcement can't solve cases without the public's help because they've got to call in the information they know. Law enforcement can't track down leads they don't know about. So they need the public's help. So then you have podcasts like ours and Seeking Justice and all of these podcasts that are out there trying to help raise awareness and do it in a way that doesn't hinder an investigation, but just promotes the general awareness. Yeah. And what makes somebody think, oh, you know what would raise awareness even more is if I attack the people that are doing it.
I mean, certainly they're getting attention to a degree, but yeah.
I just don't get it. What's the point there?
And unfortunately, you know, even on top of that, it goes even beyond that, I think, when in this case where it's somebody intentionally wanting to hurt, you know, our catchless host. Yeah. So for all it's worth, you know, if you ever hear people wanting to put out that kind of content out there to our listeners, just don't. I mean, just don't give them the time of day. Report them if you see them doing blatantly evil things, so to say.
Yeah, there's a reason why like National Enquirer and all of these magazines have lasted as long as they have.
Yeah, I know.
And
it's unfortunate.
It is. It really is.
Anyway, so I just thought I'd put that out there because I want to send so much love out to them and to anybody who's being kind of singled out or even not even being singled out, just the families that are getting the negative attention and the cases that are not getting the right kind of attention. Anyway.
I read a quote one time that like has just stuck with me, and it's like one of my favorite things now is blowing out somebody else's candle doesn't allow yours to shine any brighter.
That is an awesome saying. I like that.
And I love it.
That is really great.
And it's like, I don't know, it's just a good reminder, like, don't worry about what everybody else is doing. If you worry about yourself, what everybody else is doing won't matter.
Right. Yeah.
That, to me, when things like that come out, it's an attempt to dim somebody else's light to make theirs shine brighter.
Yeah.
And it doesn't change.
Yep.
So breathe some air into your own flame, you know, some oxygen.
Yep. I'll hop back off that soapbox for now.
Yeah, for a little while anyway, huh? All right. So we've got 3 cases that we're covering this week.
Yeah.
The first one is in Wilcox County. Located in the southwestern part of the state, Wilcox County is a rural gem with a population of just over 10,000, like 10,500. Is that a word?
10,500.
10,500.
Isn't 10,500? Yeah, I guess that would probably be right. Close.
I'm just going to make it up if it's not.
That works for me.
Unlike many other counties, Wilcox lacks a mayor. And I thought that was really interesting. And is instead governed.
That's the way they do it out here.
What?
Well, they don't. They have a mayor, but it's only like it's kind of like a figurehead. I mean, they do things, but they have.
Well, that's kind of. I think that's kind of how it. Like a lot of the counties here are. They've got the mayor, but then they also have like the city council.
Yeah,
and like there's once there, but they don't have a mayor at all. They just have the 6-member commission that's elected.
Wow. That's interesting. Yeah.
And so the largest city in Wilcox County is Camden, which boasts a modest population of just over 2,000. So this is definitely one of the smaller counties that we've talked about.
Yeah, that's pretty small.
If you only got 10,500 people.
Yeah, 10,500 people and just that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of tiny.
Yeah.
Well, one notable aspect of Wilcox County is its absence of major highways or interstates. So not only is it lacking a mayor, but transportation or thoroughfares.
I read that and I was like, I find that hard to believe because there's so many.
I had to go look at the map. I had to go look at the map to see, like, what does that mean?
I know.
But truly, there really isn't any major highways traveling through that area.
It's like county roads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of odd. Very odd. And however, the county does compensate this with over 50 boat landings along the Alabama River. And
hey, sounds like my house.
Yeah, I know. Right on the water.
No traffic and full of boats.
Yep, there we go. Historically, these landings were vital for transportating. That's a new word.
I like transportating.
We're just making up all kinds of words today.
I think that's how we should start saying.
Transportating. I like that. But for transporting cotton, corn, sweet potatoes, and livestock. Today, timber has taken over as the primary product, though. The completion of Miller's Ferry Lock and Dam in the 1960s spurred industrial growth in the county. And I'm going to butcher this name, so just hold your pants there. McMillan Bloedel Paper Mill.
McMillan something or other. And apologies.
Yes, but it's now known as International Paper, which we have out here too.
Which sounds a lot easier. That might be why.
Yeah, an international. I should have skipped that, right? And just called it International Paper.
Yeah. Our story shifts to a small, unincorporated community of Alberta, where a tragic event unfolded in the early morning hours of June 12, 2017. 50-year-old Curtis Crear and his girlfriend were victims of a violent home invasion, and though Curtis's girlfriend survived, his injuries proved fatal.
When officers arrived at the scene, they found Curtis's home ransacked, as reported by Wilcox County Sheriff Ernest Evans to CBS 8. Despite the investigations, no suspects were identified. Unfortunately, there haven't been many updates at all, in fact, zero that I've seen on Curtis's case. And from what we can tell, the case is still unsolved.
The last update, actually, that I saw was in 2018.
Yeah.
In an effort to bring justice, Governor Ivey issued a proclamation on November 13th, 2018, which I think is the most recent information that we were able to find. And honestly, it's not a whole lot.
No, I mean, that's it.
Yeah. They offered a $5,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for Curtis's death. And I wish we had more information than that, but
I know. This is
everywhere.
what makes me so sad about some of these cases. I mean, at the time it first was, reported, they weren't like huge long articles or anything, but there were a few.
Yeah.
You would think something like this would have a little bit of more attention. I couldn't find anything from family or anything. We found a sister that I couldn't even figure out how to reach. I couldn't find her on social media to send her a message, nothing. So I just feel bad about that. But
hopefully somebody will hear this and call in some information about it. So if you have any information, please contact the Wilcox County DA's office at 334-682-1497 or the Wilcox County Sheriff's Office Secret Witness Line at 334-682-4251.
Well, for our next cases, the next two, we're headed northbound to Winston County in northwest Alabama. It's kind of just almost a straight shot north.
And it's 600 way up there.
Yeah, way up there, close to Walker County. At 631 square miles. Geographically, Winston is 300 square miles smaller than Wilcox County, which is kind of interesting. But don't let that fool you. Yeah, don't let that fool you. Winston's population is more than twice that of Wilcox at approximately 23,600.
That's a lot of people shoved into a small area.
It is like 23 and a half 1,000.
You should 23 and a half. Yeah. They could come spread out to Wilcox.
Yeah.
They got plenty of room.
Yeah. In 1850, Winston County was established from territory formerly part of Walker County and was originally named Hancock County after the famous John Hancock, signer of the Declaration of Independence. But in 1858, its name was changed to Winston to honor another John Winston, governor of Alabama.
How do you just up and decide you're going to change a county's name and name it after yourself?
No, how does that happen?
I mean, county.
I guess, it kind of makes me wonder why it was named John Hancock to start with. Because I think he was governor of like Minnesota or something like that. I don't know, some other, yeah. Anyway.
History and geography are not my strong suits. So
I love history, but I'm really not very knowledgeable. I've learned a lot, believe it or not, though. All of this has really taught me quite a bit, actually.
I know. I wish I could go back and take my Alabama government classes and stuff now.
Yeah.
Residents and visitors of Winston County can enjoy the beautiful Bankhead National Forest, which boasts the 25,000-acre Sipsey Wilderness, Alabama's first national wilderness area and known as the land of 1,000 waterfalls.
I love waterfalls.
There's also a well-known, I do too. God, I love waterfalls. I think they're so pretty.
Yeah.
My son went through this phase a couple years ago. I say a couple, it was more than a couple, but he wanted to go to the mountains. He'd never been to the mountains. And my mom and I took him before school. We just went on like a little short mini vacation before school started and went to the mountains. But he kept saying he wanted to swim in natural water.
Okay.
And I don't know what he thought the Gulf was. But he, I just want to go in, I just want to swim in natural water. So we actually ended up skipping the majority of the mountain stuff. And we went on a hike, actually, to a place called Blue Chick Hole in Tennessee. And
Blue Chick?
Yes. And it actually is really pretty water. And a lot of people apparently take a hike and go there and stuff. And we went the first time, but we didn't realize how far we were going to have to go. We just kind of like found it on the map and stopped. And we were like wading kind of ankle deep and stuff in the water. Didn't realize exactly there was a swimming hole further down. And somebody walking through told us like, oh, if you go about 1.5 miles, there's a big swimming hole people like to go to. So we like packed a snack bag the next day and hiked down there so you could go swim in natural water. And then we had to stop at every waterfall like on the way back so you could swim in those. There is also a well-known naturally occurring sandstone bridge that is thousands of years old, and it's thought to be the longest natural bridge east of the Rockies. One other attraction to make note of is the annual 911 festival held every June to celebrate the very first 911 call ever made. An odd thing to celebrate, but
it is kind of an odd thing. But
how many people have survived because they called 911? So
yeah, I mean they have pickle festivals, so why not? I don't know.
They have a peanut festival in Dothan.
Yeah.
But first responders work hard, so
they do. Yeah.
Not a bad thing. Just not something I'd ever heard of before.
Yeah, I hadn't either. Yeah.
Much like most festivals, it has food, music, and rides, and is located in Haleyville, which seems fitting since 3 of its residents met ill fate in December of 2001.
In 2001, 2 seemingly unconnected families suffered devastating and mysterious losses within days of each other, and 23 years later, both families are still waiting for answers. Only maybe 5 or 6 miles of rural county roads separated the home of Randy Whitfield from the home of Elmer and Joette Thrasher in Haleyville, and in just 2 days altered their lives forever. Despite living in a small town in fairly close proximity to each other, Randy and the Thrashers were only casually acquainted.
According to the Times Daily, Randy worked as a mobile home escort and was often gone for days at a time on transports. When he wasn't working, He had a few cars and tractors on his property, located on Winston 478 near the Haleyville airport, that he'd occasionally tinker around with. Randy may have been messing around with one of the cars or trucks at his home, like he normally did, but no one really knows. Since Randy's job typically kept him away from home for several days at a time, it wasn't unusual for him and his family to go for an extended period without talking. However, they always made it a point to call each other every so often to check in just to make sure everybody was okay.
His mother, Virginia Horsley, I hope I pronounced that right, told the Times Daily that on or about December 4th, she'd called Randy to check in and ask if everything was okay. She went about her days as normal, assuming everything was fine, until Randy's brother, Calvin, called her on the 8th and told her that Randy hadn't been seen. In 2007, Virginia told the Times Daily, "When we went to his trailer, the doors were locked. His supper from that night was cooked and sitting on the stove. His dog didn't have any food or water, and I know Randy wouldn't have left the dog like that. I knew then that something didn't add up."
Weeks passed with neither a word nor a sighting of Randy, and Christmas was approaching. In that same Times Daily article, Virginia stated, "He loved Christmas. When we went in that trailer, there were wrapped presents that he bought. He would have never left like that and not told us. Somebody took him from that trailer." Haleyville Police Chief Kyle Rogas spoke to Times Daily for the article and stated that it was as though Randy had, quote, just basically disappeared off the face of the earth. He called the case baffling, not just because of the lack of information, but also due to the fact that everything at Randy's was locked up, and that in and of itself was uncommon.
Right, because they said, kind of like it is in a lot of small towns, that he just never really locked his door.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. From what was reported, no items were taken from inside the home, making a break-in unlikely, although a Haleyville man was later charged and prosecuted for having a vehicle and car hauler that had been taken off of Randy's property. Interesting bit from the Times Daily article said that investigators said there has never been enough information to arrest anyone in the case. But that doesn't say that there's not enough information to have a suspect in mind, which, happens in a lot of cases.
Yeah. And sometimes they'll come out and say, we don't have any suspects, we've got nothing.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
They just said not enough information for an arrest. I'm like,
right.
It doesn't say there's not enough information for you to know who did it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it could be that the person...
Knowing and proving it are two different things.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't remember...
that regularly.
Yeah. And I don't remember how far out this person was arrested for that, but it could have been... a theft of opportunity, knowing that Randy was gone. Yeah. Who knows? By the time of the 2007 article, investigators had conducted several searches, including an area of Franklin County, but those searches were unsuccessful. Chief Rogas also stated that Winston County Sheriff's Office and SBI were assisting with the investigation, but to date, none of the agencies seemed to have made any progress.
The 8th was just the beginning of the grieving the town of Haleyville would endure that December in 2001. The Haleyville PD and the Winston County Sheriff's offices were destined to take on another horribly tragic and curious investigation. Just 2 days later, on December 10th, 2001, and a few short miles from Randy's home, the lives of Elmer and Joette Thrasher's family would change forever.
We were able to connect with Thrasher's son, Michael, and his wife, Vickie, to help us share a bit about his parents and the events that unfolded in December. So before we go on to the events of that fateful night, here's Michael and Vickie sharing a bit about Elmer and Joette. We love to hear about the family members, just to get to know who they are, because these people aren't just some case they're listening to. This isn't just some true crime, story out there. This is actually a person with family, and they're important to us and important to you. So we like to hear a little bit about, just who they were as people and like a favorite story or.
I'm Michael Thrasher. I'm the oldest son.
And my name is Vickie Thrasher. I am Michael's wife.
Michael, do you remember how your parents met?
They met in school is where they met at. They were both going to the same school, Pebble High School or junior high is where they were at. And they met there, and I reckon that's where they had started dating.
Wow. That's cool, though. That they've been together a long time then, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
It's a rare time that you actually hear stories like that where it's like really like childhood love.
Yeah.
That lasts.
Yeah, they were young.
Yeah, she was like, 14 and he was like 16?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
He was different.
Oh.
They got married. She was 16. He was 18, I think it was, when they got married. Like that.
Wow. Yeah. That's and they were still together. Wow, that's great. I mean, I know people tend to stay together more when they were in that generation, but
Right.
But do you know, have they always been, I mean, you said they own a furniture, I think it was Jet. Was it actually Jet or was it JET?
It was Jet. It was Dad had put the initials in there from Joette and Elmer Thrasher.
That made sense. I didn't even get that until you were just starting to say it. I was like, oh, that's dumb. I bet you that's what it stands for.
Well, that's how he came up with that name.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's clever. Were they always in that kind of a business, or did they do something before that?
No, we had a service station for a long time. I guess Dad had bought it back in 81, the service station, because that's where I started. I was working there when he bought the station from the guy. Because I went to work there. I went to work there at 15 years old. I was pumping gas.
But before that, though, he used to work for Cinco, which is a staple company, and he worked at the drive-in
theater. Yeah, weekends.
Wow.
Friday night and Saturday night. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about the family? So I know you're the oldest, Michael, and then I know you have a sister, Melinda, and I'm sorry, I forgot the other sister's name.
The other sister's Pamela.
Pamela, okay.
Yeah.
Who's the oldest next to you?
Melinda.
Melinda, okay. So you, then Melinda, then Pamela. Okay.
Right. Yeah, Melinda is married to Patrick.
Okay,
Payne.
Right. That's because she's deaf and he speaks for her a lot. Like she can talk and she can like read your lips. She's got a hearing aid.
It seemed that everyone loved the Thrashers, and they were hardworking, family-oriented community members. Or at least almost everyone loved them.
Obviously, we've gotten a lot of comments about their case since we started back in 2022, and everybody always seems so nice and, have good thoughts about them. Of course, Michael was talking about, how they would help anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to December 10th, the 10th was a Monday, and Elmer had come home from Jet, or what they referred to as the plant.
And Dad had came up that evening after work, which he closed the plant around, I guess he would leave. Most people leave at 3:30. I think he would leave around 4:30, and he came up to the station, and me and him was up there talking I think he left about 6:30 that afternoon, going home. He went home, and then I went home, because I was closing up the station that day. And that's the last time I got to talk to him.
Michael and Vickie said he always had his briefcase at work with papers and a cell phone, which is weird because we always talk about how nobody ever has a cell phone.
I know. Yeah.
And here he did have one.
My dad had a briefcase. My mother had bought him a new briefcase because about a year or two prior to this, our dad's furniture plant had burnt.
Okay.
And all of his paperwork and everything burned up. So when they built the new plant back, Mother bought him a briefcase, and that was his briefcase. That was his. Nobody else should have had it, should have touched it, should have anything with it. But that's where he kept all his paperwork and everything in it. And the briefcase, and Mother's and Dad had a cell phone at that time. That's when you had a cell phone, but we don't use it like we do today.
I was going to say, wow, he had a cell phone?
Yeah,
That's
he
awesome.
had a
We
cell
talk about that a lot in the show because a lot of the, cases are older and we're, okay, was this before or after cell phones?
This was right when you could call. Is about all you could do. You couldn't text. You couldn't get voicemails. You just could text. You could call.
And they only used it whenever they went on business trips. Like if they went on a business, it's not like you got on there, because not everybody had one at that time.
It's going to be like a cordless phone. Like I had one of those.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like a cordless phone that you were carrying around.
Small brick.
Yep. Could have knocked somebody out with it. So he would have likely come in from his day and set down his briefcase to begin winding down for the evening. But we'll talk more about that briefcase in a bit. Though Joette normally would be at the plant, she was taking care of Pam's 5-year-old daughter who was sick. Their granddaughter ended up actually staying overnight. So Joette was at home with her granddaughter all day and all evening.
And because she said she was keeping my little niece because she was sick. She was 5-year-old. She was.
Oh, she was sick at the time, huh?
Yeah, she was sick. So Mother didn't come to the store that day. She stayed at home and just called me and we talked on the phone.
The day, which was nearing the beginning of twilight hours when Elmer got home, was cool, and by nightfall, fog rolled in on that December evening. Elmer and Joette had settled in, Elmer in the back of the house near their granddaughter, who was sleeping in a bedroom there, and Joette was on the couch in the front living room. Around 9 p.m., something caught Joette's attention and caused her to pick up the phone and dial 911.
But before the 911 operators could even answer, a gunman shot through the front window, hitting Joette in the back of her head, taking her life instantly. In response to hearing the gunshot, Elmer headed for the living room, but was met with the gunman bearing a shotgun, shooting him in the chest. The same Times Daily article discussing Randy's case quoted Elmer's brother Winston Thrasher, who stated, "It's like they were ambushed." Sheriff Ed Townsend stated that there were only 7 seconds from the time Joette called 911 to when the operator answered. It's almost unbelievable that all of this occurred in that short 7-second time frame.
I guess it's like when you see things, either reenacted or on the news or whatever, and it seems like when you're watching it, it's like 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
But it just takes a couple of seconds for something like that.
Unless it was two people.
Mm-hmm.
You got one outside and one already coming in.
It could be. You never know. There's no witness to say. WBRC Channel 6 says that the gunman apparently went into the carport area after shooting Joette and kicked in the side door to the house to gain entry. And fortunately, when emergency responders arrived, they did find the Thrasher's granddaughter safe in the back room. And here's Michael and Vickie with what they remember from that night.
I was at home and I'd get off work when my uncle came over, Jimmy Cummins. He had come over and got me and was telling me that something had happened at my mom and dad's. And that's when me and him, when he got me, we both went right back over there at that time. And then I met up with my Uncle Wilson and Claire Joe and Jimmy, and they were there before I got there. But yes, that's how I found out about it. When I got there, my daddy's brother, Uncle Wilson, we were all standing at the gate because they wouldn't let nobody go in. They had stopped us right there and said nobody can go, past this gate. He said, "I really appreciate it if y'all would go across the road from Mom and Dad's over to the plant." He said, "If y'all could just move across the road so officers could get in here." And so that's what they had us to do when I got there.
Okay.
So no, I never got to go inside the house at that time at all.
And you probably wouldn't have wanted to anyway. I mean, to see them that way. Do you remember much about what was going on when, like, with the police and that sort of thing when you were there? Was there anything unusual when you got there, or was everything kind of, I'm sure you were probably in shock a bit.
Well, at the beginning, we couldn't. He and I were just dating at that time, so he got there before I did. He sent somebody later to get me, but like whenever I got there, he said he was like he didn't realize there was an investigation of their dead of them being
Yeah, we didn't know
there.
they were dead at that
He
time.
thought that because there's been times that their house would get broken into, like whenever they go on trips and things like that. If people knew they were gone, because they had with business owners. So he thought the reason his mom and dad hadn't come out was because somebody had broke in and his dad had shot him, and he was having to do a report. He kept saying, "My mom and dad not coming out yet. Like, why are they taking so long?"
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Huh.
I was good up until the time I can remember things up until the time they told me that mom and dad had gotten killed, and that's when I fell apart, because it was just unreal when they told me that, But
Yeah.
so
I couldn't even imagine.
that's when I found out. My sister, when she found out, Melinda, when she found out, she was tore up. So yeah, Melinda, she actually had lunch with mother just almost every day. Her and mother would have lunch together. So she'd always go down at lunch, down at mom's, and they'd always sit and talk. And so yeah, Melinda, she took it really, really hard when all that happened. We were just kind of together at that time, and just focused everybody else out at that moment.
Family and investigators speculate it could have been a robbery, but I think it's odd that they would go to that extreme for a small burglary. Don't you?
Yeah.
I mean,
it seems like a lot of effort for there to be minimal gone,
Yeah. I mean, they did. They only took the briefcase, or at least that's all that was initially reported. It was that there was money inside of the briefcase is kind of unconfirmed. But the Thrashers, of course, shared that the Joette's purse was gone too.
I'm pretty sure it was just her wallet and the cell phone.
Well, the cell phone was in the
briefcase.
Yeah.
But and I don't mean to say like that's extreme measures for a burglary, but sometimes you have burglaries that turn into homicides. They weren't planned to be that way.
That's not what this looked like, huh?
No, because the house wasn't ransacked or anything. It seemed very targeted.
Right. I mean, obviously she knew something was happening before they even made the first shot. So
right. They tell y'all that. Well, first of all, was there a call to 911? Did she make a call to 911, or did somebody make a call to 911?
Yeah, it happened right at the beginning, right? Yeah. It was like within 7 seconds it all happened.
It was an open line.
Yeah. I think she had just called it when she got shot.
Okay.
And then
it's just all of a sudden that dawns on me, because that's what I read in the paper. It's almost somebody said something or was quoted. Maybe it was one of you guys. I don't know, but was quoted saying it was like she wasn't afraid of the person, so she didn't run. She just was calling 911.
Yes, and that might have been you, Michael, because the way she was positioned on the couch, the police officer said that she was sitting on a foot. Yes. Like you had one foot down and you were sitting on the other one. So it's like, and Mike said, well, Mama did that. So it's like she was sitting there and she saw something. She's like, I'm not going to take this. I'll just call 911.
From what I read, the first shot was through the front window, and then the man went around the side through the carport and the garage, or that carport door, I guess, into the house. Does that sound right?
The garage door.
Yeah, the garage door. Yeah, okay. That's what they told us.
Okay. So was it a garage or a carport, or both?
It was a garage.
Okay.
And it had a back door where you drive a car in, and it was open. I remember it being open. And evidently when they did that through the window, they went around, like the officer said, and broke into the house through the door between the garage and the living room right there.
Do you know how many times they were broken into?
I know.
Most of the time, this happened on December 10th. I think it was like twice that I can remember prior to this year, they would get broke into around Christmas, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Just before Christmas, they would get broke into.
That makes sense.
Usually that's when they would take a little trip. They usually take about a little vacation, but that was when he was down with the plant was closed for like 2 weeks. So they would take them a vacation, and I would always keep a check on his cows and their dogs and stuff like that, And, but this when it would happen, when the house would get broken into, and it's almost every time they were gone on a vacation. So, and then it's happening as close as it was at that very time. This is like the third year, I guess you'd say, from the time they started getting broke into.
Mm-hmm.
And they wouldn't hardly take. I don't know if they ever found anything prior. There was some things missing from my dad's, but I don't think they ever took anything major.
And no other houses around them were broken into, just theirs.
At that time, I don't remember anybody else's house was getting broken into but his, Mom and Dad's.
That we know of.
Yes.
But I mean,
it wasn't a stranger. It was somebody that knew Mom and Dad and had seen something or seen Daddy put something in that briefcase.
Because we have found out that they had a drink machine and a snack machine, and he owned the machine. So whenever he'd take the machine out, he would he'd open the machines, he'd take the change out. Well, that was Joette's money. And so we know that we don't know, but we assume from what we've been told that he put the money in there and he would take it home to her.
Okay. I got you.
But that shouldn't be nothing but dollars, you know what I'm saying?
And quarters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, if they don't know that, they think it's just something that came from their business, not just that,
Yeah. So somebody seen something that they thought he had put in that briefcase or thought there were money in that briefcase.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Because, like I said, that was the focal point because the phone was in the briefcase.
Oh,
we do know that.
Yeah, so it wasn't separate from it. So we were trying to we were thinking about the fact that briefcase, I think, was the only thing that they could pinpoint that was really stolen. Does that sound about right?
Yes. What we found was missing was the briefcase.
Mm-hmm.
The cell phone was never found, and my mother's wallet that she had in her purse. It was missing. So that was the three items that actually we found was the only thing found missing.
Right, because it was right at Christmas time, and she had a fireplace, one of those gas fireplaces, and on top of the fireplace was Christmas cards for
the kids,
for us, her kids, and the in-laws, whatever, and me, and all of them had money in them.
Yeah, she had money in all of them.
In the same room where they broke in at.
Huh.
So they didn't. Whoever was there. We can't see that they were able to go. It's like they come in.
They knew what they were going after.
Yeah.
It's like they wanted the briefcase was their focus.
So the speculation of a robbery is at least somewhat understandable due to their home having been broken into a few times previously around the holidays. Michael and Vickie reiterated that they made sure that investigators had access to everything they needed within the house and around the house. Yeah. So there were no physical reasons holding up the investigation. However, they shared with us that, as we hear in many older cases, and the older the cases are, the more often we hear it, they've been told that the evidence has been lost. And they never found any of that stuff?
We did. They did find it.
The briefcase.
The briefcase.
Oh.
They found the briefcase and Daddy's papers, but the phone was never found, and the wallet was never found from Mama's purse. But it's like a year later, right at a year later, that the briefcase was found.
Well, it was.
What was it? Maybe 3 miles from
I was
the
going to
house?
say, wasn't it on the highway or something?
Seriously?
Like
It
on
was
the
just
road?
right. It was like a cutoff road off the highway.
Off of Highway 243, County Road 6.
6 or 6.
County Road 6, I think it was found on.
That was in 2002 when the briefcase was found right there at the end, because I got in trouble by the police department because I was out there with them. I was like 9 months pregnant out there helping them look for stuff. Like we were looking for parts, anything that could be on the side of the road. They're like, you need to go sit down. I'm like, I am fine. We're good. And then our daughter was born in that January. So they're like, you need to, it was 8 or 9 months, but it was between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
I was putting the plumbing under our trailer when I got the call. They wanted me to come over there and verify it, make sure that was Dad's briefcase. Mm-hmm. And that's when I got out and changed clothes and took off over there. And when I got there, I knew it when I seen it that it was his.
Oh, then it was later that we went over there and then
Right. And that's when they told me that they found all the paperwork and everything like that, but they didn't find anything else.
Have they ever told you guys that they had anybody in mind or anything?
The closest thing they've told us is that they say we think we have enough for a arrest, but not enough for a conviction.
I'm afraid if they could
and that if you only have one shot at this.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what they told
pretty
us.
common.
We hear that a lot, actually.
I wonder, I'm curious if they have any forensic...
like, could they do updated testing?
Yeah. Like... did they leave, some kind of DNA or something on the door, on whatever they were touching when they came in and grabbed things, That's interesting because I didn't know they had a suspect at all. So, well, that sounds like they have a pretty good idea who they thought then.
That, there's all these third-party labs now that can actually pull DNA from things that maybe they couldn't pull before.
Mm-hmm.
From our understanding, the things that
no, that never sounds good.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that's good. The things that were taken into evidence has gotten lost.
Oh no!
Seriously,
we hear that way too much.
And so they've the briefcase is supposedly lost now.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say that would have been the good forensic.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, I don't know where it went to.
We never did know. They just said they lost the evidence, but now we never knew if they actually lost the briefcase. That's very true.
The evidence, I know they took. Took several bags. They took bags that had phones in it.
Yeah, they took the phones, like the old phones that were set on tables, corded phones. They took some of those. They took doorknobs. They actually took whole doors out of the house too. And took those in.
And how do you lose a door?
Right?
Yeah, a whole door. Yeah, they took.
So as far as the evidence being lost, we don't know what amount of their evidence they're talking about.
Right, they got lost, but they didn't make no specifics of which items got lost.
Every time I hear that, it just grates on my nerves. Especially, this one's older. It is an older case. But it's not as old as some of the ones that we've seen. The questions that remain for both cases are plentiful. But one that many ask is, are the Whitfield and Thrasher cases related? They did know each other, even if not well. They lived relatively close to one another. But beyond this, there's really nothing available, at least to the public, to support that the cases are connected or that provide any answers.
Yeah, he lived in Haleyville also.
Uh-huh. Yeah, only 5 or 6 miles away from you guys? Or from?
Yes, if that. Yeah.
Did you know him? I know it says that the family was just acquainted with him, I guess is the right word, but did you know him at all?
I didn't know Randy personally myself, I mean, I knew of him, but I had never talked to him or met him or anything. But I just knew of people
Yeah.
that was associated with him.
Right. I know that that everybody, speculates when something like this happens. I don't know if you've heard anything personally that would lead you to believe that the two things were related or not.
I can never really connect the two myself.
Yeah.
They try to tell us that there was people, like the sheriff's office, and I guess the sheriff's office, would you say?
Yeah, they was one of them that mentioned
they had thought that with those being so tied, the dates being so close together, they might be tied in.
Yeah, that one was on Saturday or Saturday night, I think it was, they said, and then Mom and Dad were on Monday, or the following Monday night. But I just could never connect the two myself. Me and Vickie had done a lot of checking and looking, but we could never connect the two.
Right.
To think it ever was connected to the same people that did it,
And to be fair, sometimes it doesn't matter how close you live to somebody. You don't really know them that well. Like, I could tell you my neighbor, and this is really sad because I've lived here for a while. I know my neighbors' last names, but we don't interact that often. And it's because we have different work schedules and stuff. I know what they look like. I know what their last names are.
Yeah.
Kind of just stay in my little bubble.
Yeah, well, that's kind of, here we've only been here not even a year. And, I most of the time can remember about 4 of our neighbors' first names. Most of the time I can remember, but not all the time. One of them I remember because he has a Lance trailer in his driveway, and his name is Lance.
Oh, that's easy to remember. You got it like a Post-it sticking out there in the yard.
I know. So if I forget that one, I'm in trouble.
I guess to me, the fact that it happened in close proximity or that they lived close, that's not like a solid connection for me. Because that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
Well, I say that, but now where my mom is from, everybody knows everybody. It doesn't matter if you live next door or 15,500 miles. They know.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe more so you would think that they might know each other since, not all of the family lived there then, but some of them did in close proximity to the Thrasher's house.
And it could be kind of an indirect connection, not necessarily connected directly to them. As you all know, we believe it's important that those listening do not just hear the cases as just another true crime case for entertainment. The victims are real people with families and friends, and those family and friends have had their worlds turned upside down. One thing that's good about the podcast is that it allows us to give the families a platform and an avenue to make a statement if they wish. And we always ask them if there's anything they would like to say. Sometimes we try to, at least if we can't or aren't in contact with the family, if they've given a statement in the media anywhere, we'll try to, include that or whatever. And we felt it was important that everybody get a chance to know Elmer and Joette. After talking with Michael and Vickie, they had some really fun stories about, how they met and how Vickie met them. And we asked them to share some of those memories.
When Michael and I first started dating, we went to a restaurant one night, and it was about, what do you say, about 25, 30 minutes out of town?
Yeah, something like that.
And I hadn't met his family at this point. So me and him were out eating, and we were going to eat. We walk in the restaurant, and we were looking for a place to sit, and he said, "There's my mom and dad." I said, "No, it's not. Stop." And he's like, "No, it really is." So he's like, "We're just going to sit with them." So we're like, "Hey, have a seat." So we sit down. His mother has never met me a day in her life. We sit down, and I'm sitting beside her. and she's eating lobster, and the first thing she does is take it and takes a dip out and dips it in butter. Is like, try this. And she's already trying to feed me. And I told him, he's like, just go with it.
That's a good Southern mom.
That is, I was about to say that is one of the most Alabama stories I've ever heard.
And that was just my mom. She never met a stranger. She was just, that way with everybody. So Vickie kind of thought it was strange that she just right off the bat
was already feeding me.
already doing that. With Thanksgiving and Christmas, Mom, she was always, I guess you'd say, the little anchor to everything, because she would get, everybody would, either her brothers and sisters and her mother, and we'd all be together on Thanksgiving and Christmas, So we would go. It used to be like on Thanksgiving, we would go to my dad's parents' place, and then we would, in the afternoons, we'd go to my mother's parents' place. So we'd have to go two places on Thanksgiving. So Christmas was the same way. So it was always a big family thing when Mother and Daddy was here. Sure was. Dad and Mom, they were just great people, with they try to help anybody they could help if they needed it. That's just how they was always good to us kids. So there's not just one thing sticks out, because it was something that they did all the time, because it was just shocking that all this happened, because you really don't, you didn't really think they had any enemies, at that time.
And for the person out there who took these beautiful people from the world, or anyone who knows something about their horrific murders,
we want to give you the opportunity, if the person out there happened to be listening that did this, if you had anything you'd like to say to them.
Oh, gosh. Probably things that wouldn't be good to be said on the recording, I guess you'd say.
And it's probably going to make me cry. That one's a hard one.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
They took our sense of security. They took from our kids what other people, what they probably got. If they're older now, they've probably had kids and grandkids.
The grandkids have got them.
Our grandkids have never got to have a time with grandparents because of them.
Never.
We've had to look people in the face and wonder, that have asked us. I'm so sorry.
You don't need to apologize at all.
This is just years of buildup. We've had people that have looked at us and asked us about their case, and we have to look at them. If we don't really know them, we have to look at them as if, are you asking us because you're sincere and want to know? Or do you know who had something to do with it? We've had to be on guard for 24 years of not knowing if somebody's there to be genuine honest with us and really care, or if they're there to see how much we know, to know where they stand. And that's hard.
Yeah.
How we not know if we're talking to the very person that did this? That was always the scary part.
We have to be on guard for our kids to not know if somebody's talking. You just don't know if they're there to hurt them. You have to, every time you hear a noise in the beginning, it was like, oh my gosh, is something fixing to happen to us? Or you can't let your kids go over to so-and-so's house to play because you don't know them that well. What if somebody's over there? You start getting all these stuff that don't make sense because you've been hurt so bad, because you didn't expect anything like that in the beginning for yourself as well, for your family.
It's true. The families that are left behind after something like this are every bit as much the victim as the victims themselves. In some ways, it's hard to say it's worse, but in some ways it is, because you're left here to try to deal with the aftermath. So,
yeah, after that happened, when it would start getting dark, we would lock our doors. We wouldn't answer the doors for anybody unless they called us, and we knew who was coming, or who we thought possibly we could talk to.
We'd have to lock our doors as soon as we went in, and
we wouldn't, it was a long time. It was a long time after that we wouldn't even go out, or do anything at night,
Yeah.
because of just not knowing. Belinda and Patrick was the same way. They were scared. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't open the doors. They kept their doors locked.
Wow.
That's what I said. Sometimes I wish we lived in a bigger city. I feel like if we lived in a bigger city, they would have more. What's the
Right. Resources.
Hey,
Right.
we'll talk about it till we can't take another breath because we can't. It's not right. It's not fair, and we'll go as far as we can go.
I told them all. I said, I don't care. Y'all go in the house as much as you want to. You check your sheds. I don't care. I said, you do whatever it takes.
I mean, we give them full access to everything.
I told them full access to anything you want.
Why? I mean, we've got to have.
You need answers.
We want it solved.
Yeah.
We do.
Yes.
Yeah.
One piece is all we need. Just that one little thing, and we'll have it. And he said, and that's what they kept telling us. We would like to keep it, going and keep, everybody's mind refreshed on it, that some of them may have forgotten about it, that, maybe they've got something still that they haven't, that they might have thought was insignificant, that might have thought later that, it didn't mean anything, or if they might have seen somebody in that location, or even a car, truck, something that just looked out of place, at that time, and didn't think it meant anything. But, after the years of them thinking about it, they might say, well, it might have did mean something.
Or if you were a child then and you're an adult now and you heard, I mean, people think that kids don't hear things, but they do. And they remember. So if you're an adult now, if you're an adult now and you heard something and you didn't think it meant anything, or if you think people are just running their mouths, sometimes that leads to something.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been almost 24 years that we've had to live with not knowing who, not knowing why.
Yeah, the thought still think, am I talking to this person? When have I talked to this person? Do I talk to this person every day? I mean, how close is this person to us now? That's the hard thing. That's the scary thing.
If you have any information about our cases today, please be sure to contact law enforcement, or you may contact us as well as usual. As a reminder, for Curtis Crear in Wilcox County, the contacts are Wilcox County DA's office at 334-682-1497, or the Wilcox County Sheriff's Office secret witness line at 334-682-4251. And if you have any information about Randy Whitfield's disappearance or the murder of Elmer and Joette Thrasher, please contact Winston County Sheriff's Office at 205-489-2115. Or again, you may contact us directly at info@alcoldcase.com.
Since Alabama Cold Case Advocacy's creation, we have dedicated innumerable hours to researching and networking in an effort to provide the largest platform we can to the cases we share. We shoulder all associated expenses with Alabama Cold Case Advocacy out of our own pocket, including the subscription fees for researching and production of the Unforgotten podcast to provide a cost-free avenue for the victims' families of those cases.
We hope you will join in our efforts to raise awareness of Alabama's missing and murdered and support these families who have been forced to carry the immeasurable loss of their loved ones and the fight for answers. If you appreciate our mission and you are inspired to make a donation, your extra support will enable the ACCA to continue our research, share the cold cases, and help those families know that they are also unforgotten.
Unforgotten is an Alabama cold case advocacy podcast recorded in conjunction with Riverside FM, hosted and distributed by Spotify for podcasters, available on your favorite podcast platform. Intro music for the show was created by Principles of Uncertainty, who also mixed and mastered this episode. Content and production is by Sellers and Stormy. Artwork by Sellers. Credits for music, sound clips, special mentions, and any source referenced in our podcast can be found in each episode's description. We hope you will join us on all the major social media sites and continue to raise awareness of our Alabama cold cases. Until next time, thank you for listening, and remember, justice may be delayed, but the victims and their families remain unforgotten.